Hello summoners, welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng, and today we'll be talking about the 5 sleeper OP picks and builds that you should be abusing for some free LP. You definitely know the popular OP picks and builds since they're all over social media, including our very own YouTube channel. But in this video, we'll be looking at some of the lesser known builds and picks today. The first build that we're going to be looking at is a bit of an interesting new idea for Shaco. It combines tankiness, CDR, and a mix of both magic and physical damage to make him a weird hybrid. Looking at it, you may think it's all over the place, that it just doesn't really accomplish anything. But once you see it in action, you really see that it all fits together into an obnoxious to deal with monster that is simultaneously too tanky to kill but so disruptive that you can't just ignore him. Aside from the crazy build later, you'll be starting off your early game pretty much the same as always. You'll provide a ton of pressure with your non-stop ganks, and you'll still build some damage items early on so you can snowball insanely hard. Now let's look at the runes and builds that you're going to be running. For your runes, take Hail of Blades, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, Ultimate Hunter, Alacrity, and Last Stand, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, you start with an Ember Knife, then rush Lucidity Boots and a Tear. After that, you start building Gnasher's Tooth and upgrade Tear into Manamune. And from there, the build gets wild. Next up, you go for Sunfire Aegis, and then your last 2 items will be situational depending on what your game needs. If you have another tank or diver jumping in and soaking damage, you can always go for Cosmic Drive for a big boost of your ability haste, and then Azanias. If you're the solo tank, you can go for pure beefiness, with items like Warmogs, Thornmail, and Gargoyle Stoneplate all being good options. You may not one-shot champions like you're used to seeing Shaco do, but trust me, you gotta try this one out. Think of it as having all the teamfight disruption of a tank like Zac, but with insanely high pressure early game that you get with Shaco. Part of what makes sleeper OP picks so successful is the fact that nobody plays them. Objectively speaking, they may not be better than or even as good as the most popular picks, but when your opponent doesn't really know how to play against you, then you get that extra edge in that fight. But that alone isn't enough to win all of your solo queue games. You also need to have the skills to get those leads and know how to use those leads to win your games. And that's exactly what we try to teach you over at ProGuides.com. Our top tier coaches over at ProGuides.com can really help you figure out exactly what you need to work on. They're available 24/7, so it's never really a bad time to come try one out. I promise there's at least one that specializes in exactly what you're looking for. These guys have spent years reaching the top of the ladder, so why would you want to steal all their solo queue tips and tricks? And there's no better time than now to sign up, because we're running a pretty sweet deal. Just use the discount code WINTER when you check out for 20% off your sub. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Next one is going to be a pretty lengthy discussion, because it's not just an off-meta pick. It's an entirely new strategy that's becoming a thing, and you definitely want to have a good grasp on what it is before you fly into ranked blind and enter games. If you've been playing League lately, odds are you've seen at least a few Janna tops. A month ago, people would call it a troll pick and open mid. Actually, now that it's even sort of become a meta pick, you still run into plenty of crybabies that throw a fit and the entire game because they just can't wrap their head around it. Anyway, the point is Janna top has gone from some random troll pick to one of the best performing champs in the game, with over a 57% win rate in Plat Plus. Taking into account the number of people just inting on it when they first time it, that's an insane stat. But this is the sleeper OP vid, so why are we talking about such a well-known strat? Well, that's because this entry is entirely about a related pick that you probably haven't seen yet. Today, we'll be talking about Top Rakan. While he's just another support being played top lane, the game plan is totally different with him. As Janna, your goal is to hit level 3, then permanently roam to put pressure on the map. You'll either constantly try to gank lanes, or try to fight skirmishes with your jungler. Even if you don't get kills, you're constantly poking enemy laners with your W, helping out your laners build up an easy lead. But Rakan is a lot more teamfight oriented. Instead of the small leads here and there that you go for with Janna, you're looking to guarantee fights with his explosive engages. Your main goal with him is try to stay top until level 6, at which point you'll leave lane and force fights hard with his ultimate. Your first ult should either be force a fight at Dragon or do a 4-man dive bot lane with your jungler. And from that point on, the rest of your game will be spent making plays with your jungler or ganking bot on your own if the jungler is too busy clearing camps. One really big thing to talk about when doing any of these roaming strats is what happens to the top laner that you're leading 1v0. A lot of people start to panic because they're giving free farm and plates, but it really isn't that big of a deal. Think of it like this. Your roaming plays are giving your other laners just as much of a plate and a farm advantage, while also farming kills for your team. Plus, your team should have complete control over Dragon for the entire game. And the biggest benefit that this brings to your team is that you have a Rakan for team fighting later. Rakan is one of the best team fighting champs in the game, but when you play him in the bot lane, he's pretty weak early, so you kind of just handicap your ADC. It's more beneficial for you to play him top lane, sack the lane with a strat, and then still be really OP in fights later without hindering your lane partner. Now let's talk about the build that you're going to need for Rakan top. First of all, you don't run flash TP like with most other top laners. Instead, you're going to run Ghost with Exhaust. Rakan wants to run all over places in fights, so he gets a lot more value out of Ghost movement than with Flash's Blink. W and E gives you a total of 3 dashes anyway. For your runes, you will run Phase Rush, Nimbus Cloak, Celerity, Water Walking, Conditioning, and Unflinching, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Armor, and HP. The itemization for this is all over the place. Rakan is actually pretty good in trading in lane, so you actually want to start corrupting potions so you can get aggressive. On your first back, you'll get Spell Thief's Edge, so you can start generating extra gold when you roam. After that, you're going to want to go for Lucidity Boots, Shirelia's Reverie, and Randuin's Omen to really beef you up. Your next item should be Ward Stone, and then top things off with either Redemption or Dead Man's Plate. This whole support being played top but actually just roaming thing is getting kinda crazy. Even Yuumi is actually considered viable, at least on servers where players aren't so mental that they int because it's locked in. So far, the ones that I've seen played top are Janna, Rakan, Yuumi, Bard, and even AP Twitch. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What other champions do you think that can work with this roaming strat? Remember, it needs to be a champion that can provide a lot of pressure with its roams and scaling with lower income. Let us know your answers in the comments down below. Now without further ado, let's get back to the topic. Like most one-tricks, Quinn players will complain that their champion is weak and needs buffs, but looking at the stats, she just isn't doing that bad. Still, Riot is giving in and giving her some buffs this patch. I think it's a little bit silly, but alas, we work with what Riot gives us. Or I work because Riot gives us these things. Quinn top is definitely going to be getting some more play this patch, but this entry isn't about that. I'm here to make sure that you ADC mains aren't missing out. Quinn as a bot laner has historically always been a low play rate but high win rate champion. She's able to hard bully lanes like Lucian or Draven, with the added bonus of being able to extend the lead to the rest of the map by roaming with her ultimate. Once you get out of laning phase, she basically becomes an assassin. If you see an opponent overextending in a side lane, or the enemy support venturing too far from their team to get vision, you can easily swoop across the map and make a pick. In teamfights, Quinn does just as much damage as a regular ADC, but she has shorter range than most. But this doesn't make fighting with her hard. In fact, with her having nearsightedness from her Q, and the knockback and reposition from her E, she's super safe against divers that would tear up most other ADCs. Now let's look at the build that you're going to be going for with Quinn. For runes, take Press the Attack, Triumph, Legend Bloodline, Coup de Grace or Cut Down, Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, start with the Doran's Blade and then build into Kraken Slayer, Berserker's Screeve, and Stormrazor. After that, go for Infinity Edge and Lord Dominic's Regards. Your last item slot is situational, but most games, Bloodthirster is probably the best option. The next pick is another one of those that just sounds like it exists just to troll and tilt your team, but once you actually play it, it's an enemy team that's going to end up tilted off the rift. I'm talking about Predator Singed mid. Playing Singed mid is 100% different from playing him top lane. In top lane, most Singed players barely interact with the other 9 champions in the game. They proxy and then just run into the enemy base and die if they get chased. That works out for 2 reasons. For one, top lane is all the way on the edge of the map, which means the enemy team has to go out of their way to chase you down. And you being singed and all, they're usually just on a wild goose chase that ends in you being executed and them wasting their time. And you might pick up a kill along the way. In mid, you're in a spot where the jungler and support can easily swoop in and go for a gank for you. The other more important thing is the length of the lane itself. In the top lane, you can sit between the outer and inner towers, no problem. But in mid, the towers are way too close together for you to comfortably proxy. So if you don't proxy as singed, what do? Your goal is to shove the wave in fast with your poison, and then use Predator to roam and affect the rest of the map. Ideally, you work with your jungler, looking to 4-man bot or invade with him, but if he doesn't cooperate, you're plenty of a threat on your own. Post-laning phase, just like any other singed, you're a disruptive monster in a team fight. But with the build that we're going to be going over, you'll see that you're a lot more of a carry than singed usually is. For that build, you'll want these runes. Bring Predator, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Ingenious Hunter, Water Walking, and Celerity, the stat runes being Double Adaptive Force and Armor or Magic Resistance. For your items, start with boots and a refillable potion, then go back for sorcerer shoes as soon as you have the gold for them. After that, you're going to want to rush Demonic Embrace and Rocket Belt. Rocket Belt gives you more catch potential, but DE gives you some much needed durability for those early scrappy teamfights. With that done, you'll go for Zanya's Hourglass, Dead Man's Plate, and either Void Staff or Force of Nature. Finishing off our list, we have Kled mid. This pick works well into almost every single mid lane matchup that you'll see, but he's especially potent as a counter to melee assassins. Since those are definitely the champions that people struggle with the most, this may be a good champion for you to pick up to have in your back pocket. As Kled, in the shorter mid lane, it's a lot harder to force trades on your opponent, so you'll want to try and pull the waves towards your tower. Once there, wait for your opponent to make the mistake of moving up too close for a CS and then go in. Or like with most other lane bullies, if your opponent over-respects you to the point that they're entirely conceding the lane, you can just use your priority to go for a roam. His ultimate may be a pretty long cooldown, but when it's up, it should be a guaranteed kill or 2 if you use it to go for the enemy bot lane. Post-laning phase, you'll have the ability to dominate as both a sideliner and team fighter, so you can go ahead and deal with a variety of scenarios with ease. The one thing is you want to avoid fighting 5v5s when your ultimate is down. The initial charge makes it really easy to land your EQ combo on an opponent, but without it, you're pretty prone to being kited. Also, I know I've said this before, but isn't Kled just like a small Rengar? Is that just me? Am I the only person that sees that? Anyway, let's go over the build that you'll want for Kled mid. For your runes, bring Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, Demolish, and Bone Plating or Second Wind, with stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor or Magic Resistance. For your items, start with a Doran's Blade and then immediately build into a Tiamat and pick up a Tier 1 boot. After that, start working for Eclipse, upgrades to either Steel Caps or Merc Treads, and then turn Tiamat into Titanic Hydra. Next up, you'll want Black Cleaver, and the last 2 item slots are situational. Generally, Death's Dance and Guardian Angel are good, but sometimes you'll want a full tank item like Randuin's or Stone Plate for team fighting. And that wraps up our sleeper builds that you're missing out on for patch 12.3. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides, and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know what champions you think can work with the roaming tile plane strat in the comments down below. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.